Welcome everyone to our triannual meeting of the Texas CPSE Consortium. Welcome everyone that's from out of state. You're always welcome to join in. We have a great program ahead today, starting with Michael Anderson presenting on NFPA 1600, which is a new standard addressing pretty much firefighting, which is why we all work for fire departments. So you have the floor, go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Leonard. Everybody, if Rick can give me a thumbs up if it sounds okay. Cool. Hey, my name is Michael Anderson. I'm currently assigned as a battalion chief in Travis County ESD number 2, Pflugerville Fire Department in Pflugerville, Texas. Currently assigned as the safety and training officer. And to be honest, I'm happy to be here today. Leonard reached out and gave me the opportunity to talk about the NFPA standard, NFPA 1700 standard. So a little bit about myself and participating on the committee. Since 2011, I have been a member of the advocate team for the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. And during the time of during the time that Rick Mason was there as our training coordinator, we had the opportunity to expand, our involvement in NFPA committees. So I was fortunate enough to be selected for the 1700 committee, and my role there is to represent the foundation and the basis of the 16 live fire safety initiatives for these standards, or during the standard, but also to be able to look at it from the viewpoint of how it affects health and safety for the fire service. I kind of got started with this committee as attending the Fire Dynamics Boot Camp, which was a project put on by the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation through one of the grants, which we partnered with UL and NIST to put on a number of these fire dynamic boot camps across the country, which exposed a group of instructors to the implementation and the applicable side of fire dynamics from the studies. And that kind of naturally led to the NFPA 1700 committee. So in 2014, Chief Smokey Dyer out of Kansas City put a proposal together for a new standards request. He was looking to bridge the gap between the fire service community and the fire ground to address fire control by establishing a basic understanding of fire science and fire dynamics. So an easy way to say that, than kind of the wordy side there, is he was looking for a way to take the research that had been being done and to get it out into the fire service community in a way that it could be used, followed, or maybe even have a little background, a little teeth behind it. He worked to recognize the work of the research community. The saying that's been around from the fire research is more research has gone on in the last 25 years than the rest of the history combined. And he recognized the challenges with the dissemination and adoption and implementation of these materials. So, my first question I kind of ask regarding that is, how were you told or shown what you were to do in your fire department on the fire ground? Was it based upon that's what we did? He showed me. What was it based upon? And that's what I took from it. This takes and bases a operational type activities and decision making and development based upon what the fire science is telling us, and not just historical or personal inflection or such. What were some of the biggest changes that came with NFPA 1700? What is different about it is it provides guidance on how to apply the tactics for fire control and incident actions by using what the science has told us. Is there any other standard that tells you how to fight fires? For those that are well versed in the standards, I would challenge you to find any for residential first alarm structure fires. And if you do find one, please forward it to me because I needed it for a moment. What this guide has is it has chapters dedicated to providing information on fire science, fire dynamics, building construction, and how it's correlated to the fire research. And then they take that and directly applies it throughout the rest of the standard on applicable strategies, tactics, actions that you can apply. This is a little challenging. When the standard was first developed or put out as an idea, the community was saying things like, there's not enough data to cover the wide, vast amount of information we need to. Why make a standard that you already know is only going to cover a portion of what we need to? And, I think one of the answers to that is it's a way to take the information that's been out there and make it to where it is set as a standard or a guidance for fire departments to use. I challenge all of us to say, think back to the first study, UL NIST type study that you reviewed, you recognized, you knew was published. Mine that I can remember was the PPV study that was done out of Austin in the early 2000s, and mainly because we're a PPA fire department, and, that was happening close by. But after those studies are done, what happens with that material? How is it implemented? How is it used to guide, firefighter activities? We have examples. Looking in the standard, there's tactical, the way it was broke down is there's tactical considerations with preferred and alternative techniques. When the standard was being developed, there was a wide vast of experience and organizations from all across the country, including Germany, Belgium, Canada. So there wasn't really as much of a common theme amongst the application of strategies and tactics in the room. But what it gave was a vast idea of what the information needed to cover. So you'll look at throughout how the standard works, and it doesn't just say like you can't use a fog nozzle, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. It'll give you a preferred technique. It'll give you an alternative one. But what it also does is explains what you're doing and the effects that it has on the fire ground based upon the science. So the example I have up, surface wetting utilizes water streams to limit exposure of radiant heat. So what is that really saying? You're cooling a surface. How can we cool the surface? Well, multiple different ways. The primary and then alternative methods. Why this was such a change is this is getting down into an area that traditionally has been used based upon the organization, where it's from, what building construction you have, maybe some traditional ideas. And I'm not saying any of that is bad, because what works in one area, just knowing Leonard and the department he represents, and then from what Houston can do in their organization to what my buddy here, Jeff Davis, can do in Georgetown are widely vast. But it provides the background information for the organization to take and try to build their strategies, their tactics, their SOGs, their SOPs, and then be able to apply them. What's next for NFPA 1700? From the inception of the concept, it was known that there were going to be some challenges with how much information it needed to cover. And then what else was out there? There was lots of worries about the validity of the published information. The challenges to, well, who says, why is it so? But also to the scopes of the research that was being done. At the time in 2014 to 2016, the studies were, during then it was Governor's Island, the studies out of New York, and out of Spartanburg, South Carolina, were being published. NFDNY did the one on wind-driven fires about that time. And so if you looked at the history of comments regarding the standard, a lot of focus was on what's missing, what are we not covered. So the committee understood that during, over time, this standard is going to be in a continuous revision cycle. And unfortunately, with the NFPA cycle, there's some time there. But it's been very interesting to go back and read the early literature in opposition or comments about it, and know by the time that the standard was published in 2020, how much more information to cover some of those gaps, how much of that was there. Along with the evolving research, information, and publication, there's been the development of online training resources. Through UL and NIST, there is a tremendous website now that has all sorts of background information and small snippets and larger training programs regarding fire dynamics. And then they also took some of the studies and the information gained from their laboratory, experiments and such into a better and more useful kind of output, small videos, some smaller examples, some guided conversations from Kerber and Madrikowski to help it make it more relatable. And I know I'm probably not necessarily covering everything yet, but how can it be used? How does it correlate with credentialing? And this is my exposure, my experience is, credentialing usually relies upon being able to use some sort of resource as some sort of guide or baseline. So first and foremost, it provides a standard, to develop SOPs and SOGs. Why I found this important was recently I was working on a project through a multi-county auto aid committee, where we were trying to define and develop common operating fireground procedures that were applicable amongst 2 different counties, a total of about 25 fire departments that operate in various ways. And as we were going through the development of the SOG, I started looking for the resource that would back up one way or the other, either a point or a counterpoint. And it's kind of difficult. Luckily, I knew about NFPA 1700 being a committee member and could turn to that for some guidance. So, it is a resource you can go to just to develop your SOGs, SOPs for fire control. But using the reference material from the, the studies and the research. You can use it as an evaluation tool between current and potential fireground tactics. Part of the continuous improvement methodology, you can take what you have currently doing, you could look at revisions through, the information found in 1700. And then, over a period of time, evaluate if you've had some improvements, if you've had some other data set that shows that the implementation of what came out of your development from NFPA 1700, if that had an effect on any of the data measurements you have. And ultimately, it was based upon working to improve firefighter safety and provide science-based references to base the decision-making. Not just the traditional sense, the ideas of that's what we've done, or other resources. Everybody is probably even way more knowledgeable regarding the information that came out between the old legacy fuels versus modern fuels and the data from that. Using information like that went into the development of this standard so that we could look at revising our strategies, tactics in the fireground operations to match our modern fuels, our modern complexities of homes and building construction and all these other barriers. And hopefully implementing firefighter activities that make the fireground have a little bit more room and structure involving firefighter safety. Knowing, the committee was well aware, and man, the conversations that went on, well aware of Everybody does things differently. One size doesn't fit all. Things work in certain areas and others. So there's times that the statements and the information there was a true, cooperative decision point. And then what's interesting is some of those points that were made during the public comments have already been researched through some other research materials, and now the research can talk even more on some of those points. So I know one of the things Leonard asked to talk about was how was the involvement on an NFPA committee? It's kind of interesting because it was my first one. I'm not new to standards by chance, but it was the first one to be part of a committee. Looking at some of the people, some of the names and organizations here, I'm sure that you have members of your organizations that have sat on some of the committees. I came in at the second reading, after the second public input. I wasn't around for the original development of it. So talking with some of the group that was there at the original part it took some focus to get the group with a wide array of experiences focused into what it was going to look like. Overall, working on the committee, there was a lot of review. Thank goodness we only had, I think, about 70 comments to go through. I think 1001 or 101 had, 300 or 400 comments. So, man, we had a light workload. But it was very interesting to see how all of these different organizations that operate differently can look at these topics, and I like to say ours was topics. Listen to the experts that did the research to provide the background information, throw out how we want to apply it, talk about the challenges to the applications and how it could be equally applicable from Toronto to Boston, to Pflugerville, to a small volunteer organization, to the, whoever it would apply to, and then work to come to some common ground that could go into the standard. To tell you the kind of the funny and the joking side is we were down to talking about what defines a fine mist fog stream in regards to whether we were going to use American standard measurements or a metric system. So, but those are kind of things that go on in the committee. And like, most committees that have some challenging topics, there were some heated debates. There were some challenges amongst some thinking. But in the long run, I think, reading what Chief Jardine, the chair of the committee, the UL and NIST personnel, from hearing all of their feedback from the final document, feel like it accomplished what we sought to do. So ultimately, the NFPA 1700 kind of packages all of the fire dynamics, the fire research, and looks to apply it and allow a way that it can be applied to the fire ground. So that's kind of the gist of everything. I'd intended to have some more committee members on here. They're all way busier than I am. But at this point, I'd like to ask if anybody has any questions, comments, or anything from the group. I don't see anything in the chat for anything directly. It'd be interesting to know, is anybody in here actually been familiar with NFPA 1700? Kind of thought that too. So it's interesting that this standard was one that didn't have the fanfare when it came out, like some of the changes to standards. We're all waiting on the 1581 already been revised and published. So, that's kind of the background of what I had. I went way faster than I intended to, Leonard, even though I told myself to practice talking slower. But
Do you mind putting on the screen like a sample of the standard real quick?
Yes, let me, I didn't want to distract a while ago while I was trying to,
Just give you a rundown on each the chapters.
yeah. Let me get that up here just one second. All right, are you seeing the standard on the screen here?
Yes.
Yeah, this is chapter 10, which is tactical considerations for fire control. And I'll give you an example of what the chapter, how it's written. Because, you know, one of the things we heard was you're going to sell a lot of like what you can't do. And really the way it was worked is, you know, how do we apply it? So here it is, tactical considerations, surface wetting, building of origin, or other ones. It's about exposure control. Preferred techniques, a direct application of water using a straight or solid stream or large droplet with some alternative techniques. And throughout the standard, that's the way it was written so that it could be applicable to different organizations and different tactics. So let me try to go to the table of contents here. You know, definitions, that was a big one. There's a lot of terms that were used and found in the fire research that was published that are not really found in other standards or other information, textbooks, certification courses and programs. Chapters 5, 6, and 7 talk about the fundamentals of fire science. And this gets into talking about those things like heat transfer, you know, how ventilation controlled fires, how air affects the growth of the fire, the building construction considerations. You know, here just on the screen, it talks about protective features and things for considerations. But the standard also includes information on your PPE and decon. And really, both of these were very controversial points of conflict during the committee work. A lot of public comments came that these are found in other areas. So why mess with them? Why bring them in? And you know, the goal was these are all part of considerations for structural firefighting, including, you know, your exposure and your cancer exposure and cancer, you know, prevention. The tactical considerations is kind of that meat chapter where you start breaking into, you know, what are some areas for different types of occupancies. 1 and 2 family dwellings, you'll have large space, I believe, manufactured homes, large estate dwellings. So it starts breaking down considerations for those different areas. You know, and really looking at the intent is you could start to go and use these to broadly build your SOPs and SOGs. In the Annex B is some, you know, standard templates for SOPs. So once again, providing resources to an organization that is looking to implement something new, develop something, and then being able to provide that resource. You know, probably my favorite part, just because I'm a little biased, is just like every other standard, we're able to include the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation 16 firefighter life safety initiatives, so that we're continuously working to embed those initiatives into the fire service so that every firefighter knows of the firefighter life safety initiatives and understands how they can implement them. That help you there, Leonard, showing you that? what Leonard has on the screen here is the website with the 1700 training, the interactive website there where you can start going through the different modules, and it starts explaining how those different areas of the fire dynamics can be viewed and how they apply to the to your fire ground incidents. It's all free of charge. Steps you through decision points where you see, you know, do you have the chance to do a 360? Then you have the opportunity to take the information from that 360 and then apply your strategies. So your options are supported by the data in the standard, you know, applying water to the rear from an exterior position. You know, it's supported in the standard, it gives you a little bit of information to support it. And then where you're going to entry point, where you're going to enter from. Then you should, at the end of the simulation, you'll get a summary of, you know, the information there. Thanks, Leonard, for coming through and bringing that up. I didn't want to kill the bandwidth of my system. Any questions?
So do you expect a NFPA 1700 to be pretty much standard reading for the fire service, or is this something that's probably going to be down the road and gradually being accepted?
You know, it's kind of, it's very interesting that the initial concerns about the standard and how, you know, the comments were, it's, you know, we don't know if it's going to be applicable and such. I don't know if it's going to take off, you know, right away and become a big thing. What I truly believe is probably around the time of the next revision cycle, there will be a larger library of research that's been conducted that I think will help validate what was put into the standard, so that you know, it's almost like the revision cycle of everything else. You know, there'll be time to look at how the standard was put together, and then how, you know, the information in it was vetted through more research. I could not find that the 1700 standards been referenced in a LODD report yet, but you know, probably had some limited research capabilities into, you know, the possibilities of, you know, how many reports and such, you know. So you know, there hasn't been a whole lot of press, and besides the work being done with UL and NIST in their presentations, I really think you bringing this out, you know, to ask for an overview of it was really kind of the first kind of outpouring I've seen, or a presentation on its implementation or publishment, I guess you could say.
So the reason I stumbled across it is because we subscribe to NFPA's magazine, and one of the feature articles this month, if I can find it.
Game Changer on page 80, I believe. Is that right?
Page 8. Let's see.
Yep.
So there is an article available in the NFPA Journal describing the standard and its hopeful impact.
Yeah. It's funny, I got it printed out here with my notes from it. And that's a good summary of how it's looked at to be impacted, and a good article there. This article highlights the inclusion of the fire dynamics really well. This was put out by Chief Jardine from the assistant chief out of FDNY, who was our committee chair. And of course, Dan Madrikowski, who unfortunately was not available to be on here with me to explain things in a much better way than I could. So there is, if anybody subscribes to that, if you want a copy of just this article, I'll be happy to send a copy of it out. If you want to put some information in the chat there, some email addresses.
So any questions from the group? If not, we'll shift over to Rick Mason. And he has 20 minutes before we go into a online break.
Once again, thanks, Leonard, for having me. Pretty big honor to be part of the committee and represent the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. And I look forward to any questions anybody has. Thank you.
So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be here today to talk about some of the things that the CPSE is doing right now and some of the changes we've made recently. Before I get going, I did pick a good meeting with you as Michael and I go back the last 10 years now with the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. I retired from there and hated it, so I found another position with CPSE. I've been with CPSE actually for 20 years, one of the first CFOs. I was on the CPC commission for 9 years, which is all you can be, and believe a great deal in both credentialing and accreditation. My forte, however, I will say is the credentialing side, much more than accreditation, however. So I'll run through some things. We are doing a lot more now. Obviously, we do a lot of Zoom like everybody else. However, we are opening up now and actually going to live meetings. The only thing that is not live right now are the in-person hearings for accreditation, and that will start again in March. But they'll all be virtual till then, and I guess they're doing it on a more regular basis than only twice a year. But site visits, workshops, technical advising, general staff travel is back open now, and we just follow all the protocols that we need to make sure we all stay safe. We would like to make sure, however, that we have all the appropriate contact information. So if you could make sure that either it gets sent into the office to either Cindy or Chris, that way we know that we've got all the appropriate information. If you can get on our member suite organization or software, which is when you register for things, you're on the member suite. you can just go in and make sure that we do have the current information as well. If you've got Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, those social media, we post regularly to anything that comes up. If a credentialed officer gets a promotion to chief or something like that, we'll post it. And we post other information on a regular basis. As well, we'd love to have the contact. And thank you very much for putting that on the chat as well. The portal login is Leonard just put up to make sure your information is correct. The other thing is when I saw that, I lost my place here on my form. We have a standard form that we use, so all the consortiums that we go to get the same information. I will say that the CPC or the credentialing applications are going to be changing at the end of the year. So if you have a current application going for a new designation, you want to make sure you get that done before April 1st, or it'll have to be in the format that will be posted on MemberSuite in our online store. Actually, even though they're free, the new application form, which will have new technical competencies or changed technical competencies for each designation, will be in effect April 1st. And they'll be the only ones that'll be posted and able to be downloaded after December 31st. Our Excellence Conference, we actually just had our first joint meeting with the commissions and the board of directors at the Carib Royal. Basically, we were in a position where we had to cancel the live CPC Excellence Conference this year. So we wanted to make sure that we kept going to the Carib to reap the benefits that we get from them. The Excellence Conference will be at the Carib Royal in Orlando, March 22nd to 25th. The theme is resiliency and reinvention. Go figure. The go figure part was mine. That's not part of the name. There will be 5 tracks: accreditation, credentialing, leadership, resiliency, and reinvention. And they're all full with classes that'll be offered. So the call for papers or courses has closed. Registration on the CPSE.org website is up and running. We're ahead of 2020 as far as registrations right now. And we obviously hope that we'll keep that going. I know many people want to be able to get out and about at this point in time. The early bird registrations closed January 11th, so I would recommend that you register prior to then if you intend on going. We're also accepting awards for we're accepting applications for our awards for accredited departments for the Brugman Agency Innovation Award, and these are all on the CPSE.org website. We're accepting applications for the Picard Award, which is tied directly to accreditation. We're accepting applications for the Coleman Award, which is tied to credentialing. Excuse me. The Worthington Scholarship. In fact, Michael Anderson is one of our peer reviewers or graders for that. Has closed on October 31st. We had 9 applications. From the Worthington Award, we'll offer 5 scholarships for free FO designation for the first 3 years and a free trip, not a free trip, but a free registration to the Excellence Conference in March. Those will be voted on at the December 7th commission meeting. The next CFAI or credentialing assessment document upload date is March 31st, 2022. And for the ACRs, for those that are accredited, July 15th, for those that were accredited in August, and February 15th for those accredited in March. Upcoming workshops in states. Right now, the only one that we have scheduled in Texas is the quality improvement for fire and emergency services, a 3-day preparatory program for accreditation under the 10th edition. And this is the, it used to be known as the Fire and Emergency Services Self-Assessment Manual. It's now quality improvement for the fire and emergency services. And anyone, any department accredited after March of 2022 will have to follow that standard for accreditation. And if anybody has any questions, just unmute and ask while we're going, if you'd like to do that. If you go to cpse.org and then on the CPSE University drop-down menu, we've got many new handouts for both accreditation and credentialing. As well, we have some videos now available to help out as well. We also have the 21st Century Fire and Emergency white paper handouts and videos on the university website as well. We teamed up with George Mason University to create and co-develop a technical writing program. It consists of 6 courses. The next offering is from mid-February, and registration opens, actually is open right now. Yeah, and you can go to the cpse.org and then /projects/technical writing. And that information is all contained there. I do know that we have a video to kind of explain the program a little bit more, where we took an actual technical competency from one of the designations that was not written the best. So they actually go line by line and talk about some of the changes that they could make. And that's on a short video, which is also an advertisement for the technical writing program. We've got very, very good reviews from that program. We have a couple of upcoming offers that are very exciting as well. They're both mainly online, but also have some live components. The first one is Strategic Planning Academy. The contact is Brian Dean, where it's online access for a single user for 60 days, 9 hours of asynchronous instruction, downloadable tools to help develop the elements of your plan, a customized online survey to gather information from your community, and 4 hours of live virtual technical assistance. It's ideal for agencies that are in the process or contemplating a strategic plan in the near future. It also talks about support and participation from all facets of the organization. The second program that will be run basically the same way is called Community Risk Assessment Standards of Cover. The contact for that is Rick Fagan. Again, online for a single user for 120 days with 10 hours of asynchronous instruction, downloadable tools like with the strategic planning, and 6 hours of virtual and technical assistance scheduled at your convenience. On both of the classes, it's at your convenience. It's ideal for agencies to have support and participation from the chief, labor, cross-section of the entire department. And it should be somebody that's, for a 10-hour program, you'd want somebody that's comfortable in virtual learning. Both Brian and Rick are part of our TAP Technical Advisor program. They've done strategic planning and risk assessment for several years, and their evaluations are always stellar. So I would recommend that if your departments are interested. We have some project updates. The 10th edition is all approved, as I mentioned earlier. It's effective March 2022. The quality improvement for the fire and emergency services is available for purchase. That's on the online store, which again is, you can get that at the cpse.org website. They do have the 3-day accreditation course, and that's the one that I mentioned earlier that will be in February in Temple, Texas. And that's on the CPSE University page of our website. CPSE we were due for a strategic plan this year. And during a pandemic, how do you do that? Kind of hard to look at the next 5 years when you don't know if you're going to be wearing masks for 5 years and be in quarantine for 5 years. So we opted to handle a 2-year plan for 2021 to 2023. It was online through Zoom. I participated in it as a staff member. It was, I got to say, it was incredible that the facilitator did a great job keeping it moving and interesting. As you know, an 8-hour Zoom meeting is something I was not looking forward to, but it was over in no time. Our 6 areas of focus: multi-step path to accreditation, which will not be a mini accreditation. It's just how to take baby steps. And they're actually meeting in the office today with the group in Chantilly. I'm the only office member that works remote. I work from New Hampshire and from my home, at least until April, when I've announced my retirement. Getting back to the 6 areas of focus, other than the multi-step path to accreditation: robust digital strategy, meaningful brand awareness, greater and broader engagement and collaboration, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the Center for Innovation. All things, we have a team working for all 6 areas that have both a staff lead and a board member from the board of directors champion. As well, we have a member from each commission on each of the 6 action teams. Budget considerations. We always try to do all the things we can do. I know we can't make it to every meeting live that the consortiums have. I did make it to 2 live this year already, and I'm guessing that I'll probably between now and April go to 1 or 2 more live meetings. So I look forward, possibly your next meeting would be one that I could attend in person. So with that, I know it was a very quick overview, but I'd entertain any questions or comments anybody might like me to take back to the office during our next staff meeting. Everybody's on mute. I think everybody's trying to talk at the same time and ask questions, but you're all on mute. Oh, you weren't, huh?
Hey, Rick, you said the new competencies and everything goes in effect April.
Yes, the applications will be on the website on December 31st. And then any application that's received after April 1st will have to use the application, the next version. And I do not know about the template for ACR, but I will get back to the group and let you know about that.
And just to make it clear to everyone, it's like, even if your department is not on track for accreditation or you're not a credentialed individual, you can still attend the training that the CPSE holds as long as you pay the fee. So one of the trainings that Rick mentioned is the technical writing course. So the information is here, hosted by George Mason University. And it includes like a session on principles of proposal writing. And it's an online course, so you don't need to fly to DC to take the course. Just a little more information here on the website.
I appreciate you putting that up, and I'm not sure where it's housed, but there's an explanatory video that goes with that. They should be in the same area. And you do have to register, so it might be on the university page. However, it would be very worthwhile to take a look at that. It's 20 minutes. It's two of the instructors. They work back and forth, and they do a really great job doing that.
And a lot of the concepts, like I said, you don't need to be on accreditation track or be accredited to use the resources for how to develop a strategic plan for your fire department.
Yeah, absolutely. Any of the handouts and videos on our university page, we'd love for you to take a look at them, get a little bit more information. And if you've got information about accreditation, you can aim them towards me, but I'll forward them to Carl Ristow, our accreditation director, like he would forward to me anything on credentialing. Yeah, that video is under aftercpse.org. It's /projects and then /technical writing. And I would do that sharing my screen, but I have the worst luck with technology.
And if you want to make nominations for any awards, that's also available off the website itself.
Yeah,
So
the website's recently been updated, and I got to say they've done a really good job. So it's pretty easy to find the things that you're looking for.
And the Excellence Conference, I am the advisory chair for the planning committee. Selections are still being made, so hang on tight. But just a warning to y'all, if you do plan to attend a conference, do book your hotels and flights early. It does sell out, and you don't want to be stuck on certain airlines with 2 layovers coming back with spring breakers. Speaking from experience.
Yeah, good point. Yes.
So we're going to, if there's no questions, we'll take a quick 10-minute break, and we'll continue with Heather Hernandez talking about the Continuity Council. That's a Texas-wide initiative, and we'll get back here at 2:05. Until then, I'll pause the recording and turn off the camera for 10 minutes for everyone to get a restroom break or snack break.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Bring us back on. Heather Hernandez with the State Office of Risk Management. We'll be discussing the Continuity Council. And I'll give her, she has the ability to share a screen if she so chooses. And I apologize for those from out of state. You can bear with us for some Texas specific stuff. And I believe we're still allowing people to from out of state to be involved with this as well, though.
Yes, we are. Thank you. As Leonard said, I'm with the State Office of Risk Management here in Texas. I am the continuity specialist for our agency, and I also review the continuity plans and exercises for all of the other state agencies in Texas. But I'm going to talk about our Continuity Council. This is our website, and I will put in the chat the website address if y'all care to look at it. This is the agency's effort to reach out to all the state agencies in Texas, but we're also trying to incorporate the county governments and local governments, fire departments, police departments in our continuity efforts. The council meets once a month to have either a presentation, or we will be working through some tabletop exercises. We do roundtable discussions to talk about a vast array of continuity topics. I believe y'all are required to have a continuity plan for accreditation. Feel free to use this website, or if you go up here, this has a few other forms that you can use as a resource. We have templates for creating a continuity plan. We have the FEMA guidance and FEMA tools for their continuity programs. And we also have some information for exercises. So back to the Continuity Council. Like I said, this occurs once a month. We will have a meeting and I will update information for that meeting. So by the end of this week or beginning of next week, I will have updated information for our November meeting. We will actually be hosting a member of the Austin Fire Department, and she will discuss a software she created to help map buildings in their jurisdictions, so they know which buildings have hazardous materials, which ones have stairwells that don't go all the way up, or elevators that don't go all the way up. And so which elevator or stairwell they need to get to a specific location. So that information, the meeting information, will be here once it is created. We also have a charter for the Continuity Council. It is for anyone who would like to participate. Even if you're out of state, you are more than welcome to participate with us. You can join the Continuity Council committee if you like. And they help create the presentations for the Continuity Council and help guide the Continuity Council and make sure that it is staying receptive to the General Council's desires and what they need as far as training and information from those who are experts and who have been doing it for a very long time. The meetings are also recorded and are in our learning management system. If you click this link, it will take you to the system. Anyone can register for it. It just requires an email, and then you set up your password. And then those meetings will be stored there each month on a rotating basis, and we'll have 12 months in there at any given time. We will also begin creating additional resources for exercises, recommendations for continuity plans, and just additional helpful information that will also be in this LMS system. We have videos as well that talk about the program and kind of just SORM and our goal for what we want to see with continuity in the future. This is our motto here, get it together, because we are trying to create a whole community continuity effort and really bring in federal, local, tribal, state into our community group. I knew I wouldn't take up that much time. So that's really all I have about the program. Please feel free to visit our website and get any resources that you need. And if you have any questions, let me know. Free to answer them.
So one thing to note is that SORM has jurisdiction over the state agencies, and they're pretty much providing guidance to local governments. But at the same time, it's like without the local government's input, it's only an incomplete picture. So I encourage folks to at least sign up for the mailing list. Also try to get involved into some of the planning aspects and coordination aspects. Yeah, that's what I got.
Yes, that's a great point. We would love to have y'all's input and feedback on what we're offering as far as resources. If something is missing that we need to add, then we would be more than happy to do that.
And when did this initiative start?
They have been holding the Continuity Council off and on for a couple of years. It just kind of got sidelined with COVID and they didn't have the meetings for about a year. So we just recently started them back up again in September, and we are doing both online and in-person meetings so that we can reach a broader audience.
Any questions from the audience? And like Heather mentioned, a COOP is one of the performance indicators in the accreditation model under the domestic preparedness criteria. So if you don't have it yet, start developing one, even if you're not going accreditation. All right, thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
All right, next up, and we're wrapping up with Carrie Little. She's the Emergency Management Coordinator of Plano. I know we're going heavy on the NFPA standards and emergency management today, but she'll be talking about NFPA 1600. Discussing how its development and how it affects the fire service and just how everything kind of, it's a group effort in short in terms of emergency management.
Oops, sorry about this. Good afternoon. Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. Thank y'all for having me. I'll go ahead and get started. I'm Carrie Little. I'm the Director of Emergency Management for the City of Plano. I actually sit on the NFPA 1600 committee, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the way NFPA 1600 looks today, and then we're going to talk about some upcoming changes we have to the standard. So a little bit about the standard. NFP 1600 is the standard on continuity, emergency and crisis management. It's not a how-to guide or a prescriptive process for plan development. It does provide an outline for programs and necessary elements and outlining the management functions to address each of these things: emergency management, crisis management, and business continuity operations. It is a universal standard, and it's a voluntary consensus standard. Don't let the name fool you. Even though it's under the NFPA umbrella, it is not solely fire-based, but it has broad application for a variety of private sector, public sector, colleges, healthcare, small business, large business. There's a variety of applications for this standard. A little bit about the history of the standard. In 1991, there was a technical committee on disaster management that was formed. In 1995, the first standard was released. There have been 8 editions of the standard, and the most recent standard was 2019. The standard was recognized by the 9/11 Commission as the National Preparedness Standard. It's been designated by the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA for voluntary accreditation for private sector preparedness programs, and it provides a common set of criteria for all hazards, disaster, emergency management, and business continuity. It's endorsed by several associations, the International Association of Emergency Managers, the National Emergency Management Association, which is primarily our state emergency management directors and organizations, the Federal Emergency Management Association, and then the American Standards Institute. The standard is broken up into several sections, and I'm going to go over each of those sections. The first is administration, which outlines the scope, the purpose, and the application. The second So these are all chapters within the standards. The first chapter is administration. The second chapter is referenced publications, and those reference publications outline general publications, NFPA publications, other publications, and then references for extracts and mandatory sections. We then have definitions. We've got general definitions, NFPA, and then NFPA official definitions. We then talk about program management, and here's where we start to get into the meat of the standard. Program management encompasses a variety of subsets, from the leadership and commitment that you need for your program, program coordination, performance objectives, pulling together a committee to support emergency management or business continuity, administration of the program, various laws and authorities that apply to emergency management and business continuity, finance and administration, and then also records management. We then move into planning, and the planning looks at the planning and design process, risk assessment, the business impact analysis, and then an assessment of the resource needs that the program would need to address. The implementation section really gets to the heart of emergency management, looking at common plan requirements, prevention, mitigation, crisis management. It delves into such things as communication and public information, how to warn and get notifications out. It addresses operational procedures, incident management, emergency operations and response plans, continuity and recovery, and then employee assistance and support. We then, as we move along within the standard, we talk about execution, looking at incident recognition, initial reporting and notification, activation of the plan and incident action plans, activating your incident management system, ongoing incident management and communications, documentation, decisions and actions, incident stabilization, and then resource demobilization and termination of the incident. We have a section on training and education, looking at curriculum and goals of curriculum, the scope and frequency of instruction, incident management system training, record keeping, regulatory and program requirements, and then also public education. We talk about exercise and tests, which is really doing drills on the program to evaluate the program, design of exercise and tests, evaluation of those exercise and tests, and then the frequency of such exercise tests and drills. And then finally, we talk about program maintenance, and that's really program review, corrective action, and continuous improvement. We have several annexes. They actually go from Annex A all the way through Annex M. And this is where we delve in and reference other materials. There's explanatory materials, there's a self-assessment, some crosswalks to some other documents. There's personal and family preparedness. We added in a section on access and functional needs, social media and emergency management, additional information on emergency communications specific to public alert and warnings, and then emergency management, continuity and crisis management, data interoperability. So all of those annexes are important information and information that's been added to over the years, but not necessarily information that is something that would be standardized for every single program. Now, NFPA looked at some document consolidation. And as we move forward, NFPA 1600, which is the standard on continuity, emergency, and crisis management, overlapped with some of the information that was in NFPA 1616, which is our standard on mass evacuation, sheltering, and reentry programs, and then NFPA 1620, which is the standard for pre-incident planning. So while we were in the NFPA 1600 committee was in the review cycle, and typically we were doing reviews every 3 years, we are now combining those 3 committees into a much larger committee. It's the NFPA 1660 committee, and it's a standard on community risk assessment, pre-incident planning, mass evacuation, sheltering, and reentry programs. That's a really long title. I don't know that that is exactly where we're going to end on this standard, but the goal and the scope of the committee is to establish a common set of criteria for all hazards, disaster, crisis, emergency management, and business continuity or continuity of operations programs, for developing pre-incident plans for use by personnel responding to emergencies, and for the process of organizing, planning, implementing, and evaluating a program for mass evacuation, sheltering, and reentry. So that's a lot of information that we're trying to consolidate into a single document. The committee has met about 3 times. We have some very spirited discussions because we're a very large committee, and we're currently accepting comments on this standard. Our second draft comments, we're accepting comments until the 12th of this month. And then we will have a second draft out sometime early next year. The actual edition for this new standard won't be formalized and published until 2024. And that's a real quick summary. There's a lot of information in this standard, and because it's changing, while most of the content is remaining, I don't necessarily know what the new content is going to look like. So do we have questions?
We have a quiet group today.
We do have a quiet group.
Firefighters usually can't stop talking.
Hi, this is Jennifer Henniger with City of Temple. I had a quick question on that. Where can we find a copy of the second draft copy for review for comment?
It's on the NFPA 1660 committee website. On NFPA, I can grab a link and send it to Leonard. Maybe he could send it out to the group. I didn't include a link because it was long.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
I found it. I'll shoot it out.
Okay.
This is, you said 1660?
Yes, sir.
And if you go on, and like you would need an NFPA login to look at the comment, to pretty much look at the public comment period area. That's how you see the entire standard in its entirety. So let me walk you all through that actually. Let's share. So when you're in the NFPA website, you can go submit public comment. And typically it will get you to a login page, landing page. And if you want to submit public comment, you can you can pop it in here and it'll let you type in public comment based on that section. Let's go change it. So it has all the draft material up there. And that applies to pretty much all the NFPA codes, but it would not let you copy and paste. It won't let you screenshot. Any other questions from the group today? So yeah, it's I believe that for the accreditation purposes, all the emergency management aspects do fall onto category criteria 5D domestic preparedness program. So being aware of all the items that moving pieces for this, it's you need to make sure you address your emergency management and all hazards. Any other questions from the group today? This will be recorded, so you can rewatch on YouTube. I won't have the chat information on the video link, but I can send that separately upon request. And any suggestions for topics for the next meeting, which most likely will be in March during the Excellence Conference at dinner. So more of a social outing. And also between now and then, please consider taking an officer and leadership role in the consortium. If there's any interest, let me know. I'll be serving for 4 years by next March, and I'm willing to pass on the baton as necessary. All right, thank you all for all our guests, Michael Anderson, Heather Hernandez, Carrie Little, as well as Rick Mason. So thank you all. If there's any feedback, comments, send them my way. My email is probably known to everyone here. And thank you especially to those coming in from out of state. The travel and commute must be rough. Right, ending the recording now.